Hello everyone, welcome back to Horror Mystery Rewind. Today we will talk about the mystery thriller movie The Pale Blue Eye released in 2022. Please let us know if the explanation of the movie is okay or any changes are needed. Spoilers ahead, enjoy and take care of yourself. The year 1830 is the background for the film, which takes place in the Hudson Valley of New York. Augustus Lander, a former detective, is the main character. He only drinks and lives by himself in his home. This is due to the fact that his daughter has been missing for several months and that his wife passed away from illness a few years ago. A military man named Captain Hitchcock comes up to him as he is relaxing by the river one morning and tells that his superior wants to meet him. Lander, who dislikes leaving his residence, objects to going, but he consents after Hitchcock emphasizes how urgent the situation is. They chat about Lander's prior accomplishments along the road. He has a 100% success rate, making him one of the top investigators in the nation. Every mystery he has been tasked in investigating has been solved by him. They soon arrive at a military academy and proceed directly to Superintendent Thayer's office. This person is so familiar with Lander that he is aware of the passing of his wife and the disappearance of his daughter. After expressing his sympathies, he goes right to the point and says that Cadet Leroy Fry, one of their military personnel, was discovered dead. Everyone believes he committed suicide, but there are some indications to the opposite. After Fry died, someone approached him, carefully sliced open his body, and removed his heart. After detailing everything, Thayer asks Lander to identify the offender and expose him. The detective accepts and starts working right away. He visits the mortuary with Hitchcock and meets with Dr. Daniel, who performed Fry's autopsy. Daniel explains that he already gave the corpse a thorough inspection and discovered nothing unusual. But after a quick examination, Lander discovers a bruise behind Fry's head and a shredded piece of paper in his palm. This leads him to believe that someone intentionally killed Fry rather than Fry committing the suicide. Lander makes several unsuccessful attempts to interpret the meaning of the torn piece of paper. It's nearly impossible to determine the full statement from the few words that are written. Hitchcock cautions him to keep the ongoing probe a secret before he leaves the academy. Later, Lander returns to the scene of Fry's death and launches an investigation. Edgar Allan Poe, a cadet, approaches him at that very moment and informs him that he thinks Fry was murdered by a poet. This is due to the fact that he is a poet who is skilled in the technique of taking someone's heart from their body. Edgar provides Lander with even another hint because it is clear that he does not accept this. He claims that he got into an argument with his roommates a few days before Fry was killed. In the following scene, Lander visits the academy with Hitchcock's approval and questions a few cadets. But none of them make any statements that are relevant to the case. After the questioning is finished, an officer shows up with a note for Hitchcock. The latter reads it and is surprised. It turns out that a sheep and a cow were also murdered in a similar manner. They were drowned to death and then had their hearts removed. It is clear that the murderer is advising them to quit their inquiry. Lander, though, is just made more determined to catch the murderer by this. He then goes directly to Edgar and requests for assistance in understanding the message on the piece of paper he discovered in Fry's hand. Despite the fact that he is only a trainee and is not permitted to speak to strangers, Edgar decides to assist. Surprisingly, he comes up with a solution that same night. He goes to see Lander at home and says that although he can't tell what the whole note said, the last sentence stated, "Don't be late." This indicates that the murderer had invited Fry to a certain place. The two decide that the note was written by a woman after talking for a while. This is due to the fact that a cadet like Fry would have no reason to meet a stranger outside in the middle of the night. Edgar suddenly recalls seeing a stunning woman outside the military base on the day of the murder. The next day, Lander notifies Edgar that they should meet at an ice house close to Lake Courage. As soon as Edgar gets there, he discovers Lander looking over an old, abandoned house. He enters and sees a circle and a triangle drawing on the floor, assuming a ceremony had been performed there. He further adds that the performers used black magic and interposed Fry's heart between the shapes. Lander now believes that Dr. Daniel's son Artemis is responsible for this as he owns the home. He takes Edgar to meet John, one of his close friends, who is an expert on the subject, in order to learn more about black magic. When they show him diagrams of the odd shapes, John immediately surmises that they are a particular kind of black magic ceremony used to achieve immortality. He further says that in order to perform it, you need the hearts of a man who died by hanging and an unbaptized kid. After learning all of this, Lander requests that Edgar make friends with Artemis and attempt to extract additional information out of him. The cadet consents and begins regularly visiting Artemis. They surprisingly end up being close friends. One evening, Edgar joins Artemis and his friends for a few drinks. He finds out from their talk that Fry was dating Lee, the pretty sister of Artemis. Many say he committed suicide when she dumped him. Lander begins to fear as he sees a vision of his missing daughter. It is obvious that he hasn't fully recovered from that tragedy. The funeral for the deceased cadet is eventually held the next morning. Fry's mother comes up to Lander as he is paying his respects and gives him his diary. She urges him to have it so he can identify the true offender. She also remarks that the diary is entirely written in an encrypted language, none of which she is capable of understanding. Lander later runs into Daniel and his wife Wiley while going home and tells them that he won't stop until he discovers the murderer and brings him to justice. Lander tells Wiley that his wife passed away 2 years ago in response to her inquiry about him. Edgar visits Artemis' home somewhere else to learn more about him. But the moment he hears Lee playing the piano, he becomes diverted. She shares his love of poetry, so they start chatting and start to feel attracted to one another. Lee accepts Edgar's invitation to meet him outdoors the next day before he departs. The two meet at a cemetery in the following scene and start talking about their feelings. Edgar expresses his undying admiration for her beauty and charm. When Lee's turn comes, she abruptly has a seizure and collapses to the floor. Fortunately, she bounces back quickly, and Edgar goes with her to her house. Lander, meanwhile, successfully obtains some material from Fry's personal diary by tearing off the pages. Bollinger, a fellow cadet and Artemis' friend, attacks Edgar while he is working alone at night and severely beats him. Thankfully, Lander gets there just in time to spare Edgar from being murdered. The following day, Lander learns of Bollinger's disappearance and subsequently discovers his hanging body in the woods with his heart cut out. This time, though, Daniel examines Bollinger's body more carefully and makes it clear that a different individual than the one who removed Fry's heart was responsible for Bollinger's death. This time, the cutting is less accurate and precise. High-ranking officials are outraged when they learn this and ask Lander to solve the issue as soon as possible. As Edgar is the most enigmatic and cunning member of the camp, they first want him to question him. When Lander refuses to cooperate, Hitchcock reveals that Edgar had a recent fight with both of the murder victims, Fry and Bollinger. Lander is surprised by this because his poet friend had never brought it up. He approaches Edgar outdoors and inquires about any possible secrets. The latter affirms having fought with them since they bullied him for his appearance and habits on a regular basis. But he didn't murder them. Edgar explains that there would be fewer than 12 cadets remaining if he killed everyone with whom he has an issue. Lander is persuaded after observing his innocent behavior, so he leaves without further inquiry. The two accept an invitation to eat at Daniel's house one evening. Lander notices Wiley is quite nervous and afraid as they are eating, as if she is trying to hide something. He speaks with Daniel in private after dinner and asks if his daughter is experiencing any problems. The doctor informs that Lee has an uncommon disease that causes her to have frequent seizures. Sad to say, there is no known treatment for it. At that moment, Hitchcock shows up and notifies the group to the disappearance of another cadet named Stoddard. Lander is alarmed by this, so he rushes to the cadets' quarters to investigate. They discover nothing there, so Lander surmises that Stoddard's involvement with Fry and Bollinger in some illegal activity is the reason they are being hunted for. However, since the body hasn't been located, it's possible that he's just fled. After that, Lander questions his wizard friend John about the witch hunter that he had previously described. John displays a photo of it and explains that he is the author of the book that details how to achieve immortality. As soon as Lander sees the picture, he remembers seeing it at Daniel's house and immediately moves toward there. Lee and Artemis have Edgar in custody and are getting ready to execute the same procedure they did with Fry's heart. Lander then confronts Daniel about the witch hunter and his daughter's illness when he soon makes it to Daniel's home. Red-handed, the doctor admits his error and says that, after failing to treat his daughter, he was compelled to pursue a witch-hunting career in order to preserve Lee's life. He explains that the key participants in the process are his son, daughter, and wife. They are preparing to make Edgar a sacrifice right now. When Lander hears this, he becomes frightened and heads for the abandoned house. Thankfully, he gets there just in time to stop Lee and Artemis from slicing through Edgar. While Lander is relieved, Lee becomes furious and begins leaking all over the place, sparking a large fire. Artemis takes advantage of this chance to battle Lander so that his sister can carry on the ritual. Sadly, as she continues, a big wooden pole crashes on her, knocking her out. While rushing to save her, Artemis accidentally traps both of them in the flames. Lander grabs Wiley and Edgar and escapes the home before it completely collapses. The superintendent officer thanks Lander for his assistance the following day, believing that the issue has been fully resolved while Edgar is still in the hospital. After a few weeks, Edgar is fully recovered and goes to see Lander at his home. He had unexpectedly learned something shocking. He explains that he had compared the handwriting on the note he had gotten from Lander and the note fragment in Fry's hands and discovered that they were similar. It is obvious that Lander was accountable for the cadets' deaths after tying together all the pieces of the evidence he had collected. Edgar then discusses his findings with Lander and explains how he learned about his daughter Matilde from a customer of the tavern. At this point, Lander finally confesses to all of his crimes and accepts responsibility. It comes out that Matilde had been abused by Fry, Bollinger, and Stodder 2 years earlier when she was walking home alone after attending her first ball dance party. Although she survived, the experience left her so traumatized that she jumped to her death from a cliff. Lander saw everything that happened and made every effort to stop her, but to no avail. As the days went by, Lander lied about her whereabouts and withheld this information from everyone. But he intended to get vengeance because Matilde suffered and tragically died in front of him. He therefore approached Fry, tempting him with a message and leading him to a lonely location. Lee and Artemis took Fry's heart for their ritual after he had left. When Edgar asks him how he learned about Bollinger, Lander responds that he read Fry's private journal. In order to create the impression that the cadet had been murdered by the same person who had deformed Fry's corpse, he killed Bollinger and chopped his body at a convenient time. Dr. Daniel discovered 2 distinct incisions for this reason. Finally, Lander is of the opinion that Stoddard fled out of fear of being killed. He may have managed to flee, but the rest of his life will be spent in fear. Lander joined the probe because he didn't want to raise any red flags. He was also curious about the person who removed Fry's heart. Lander informs Edgar in the final scene that he can go tell the authorities that he is the true killer. The poet, however, declines, claiming that what he did was understandable. Criminals like Fry and Bollinger deserved all they received. After saying this, Edgar sets fire to the notes, destroying any potential evidence that would have led to the detective's arrest. Before departing, Edgar tells Lander that he truly values the time they spent together. The film concludes with Lander making his way to the cliff's edge where his daughter died. "Rest, my darling," he says as he lets the hair ribbon float away from her. If you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and click on like to help the channel out. Thank you and take care.